Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect. This is episode 340 of the podcast. We are broadcasting live and recording this on Sunday, August 16th, 2020. This week, we will, of course, be talking about some of the stuff we've watched lately. That includes Netflix's Project Power, also Sputnik, which is a new film available on VOD, and we do have a top 5 list this week. We will be counting down our top 5 sequels that we think are better than the original. But before we get to all of that, for those of you new to the show, we broadcast this show live every Sunday night on YouTube at youtube.com/Flicker Effect. We are also available as a podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, the iHeartRadio app, and basically wherever you listen to podcasts, just search for Flicker Effect. By the way, I'm David Lott. Joining me, as always, is Bobby Jackson.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Yasha Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
And Michelle Hillard.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Happy Sunday, guys.
Happy Sunday.
Happy mid-August. Happy whatever holiday it might be. I don't know. Anyway.
It's National Rum Day, isn't it?
Is it? I feel like it's a national something every day.
Is it?
It's National Rum Day.
Oh, I missed that.
There is almost something every day.
How'd I know?
Get your pina coladas, boys. We still have time in California.
Do we not have time here?
This is true.
All right.
I'm going to settle for some Sprite.
All right. Yeah. What have we been watching this week? Bobby and Yasha, you guys both checked out a new film on Netflix, Project Power. I was worried I was going to say Power Project, and I almost just did. But yeah, Project Power. I haven't seen this movie. How was it? Who wants to go first? Bobby, how about you? How was Project Power?
All right. I'll go first. Yeah. So the basic concept of this, well, you got
Sweet.
Jamie Foxx in it. You've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And forgive me, but I don't know the young actress name in the movie. But the basic concept of this story is that there's a pill that if you take it, you get a superpower for 5 minutes. Now, the whole thing is that you don't necessarily, one, know what your power is going to be, and two, know if it's even going to work in that you get a power. You might take a pill and you just die. You explode because you just don't know how your body will react to it. So that in and of itself sets up an interesting concept. I will say this, I liked it, but it's nothing to write home about. I mean, I don't think they're doing anything particularly special with this movie or trying to say anything profound or deep within the idea of the concept that they have. But I thought it was enjoyable for the 2 hours and whatever I was watching it for. But I feel like it's one of those things where it's easy to enjoy something when you don't have to go out and go to a theater to watch it. You kind of, I don't know if I would say I grade it on a curve, but it feels like since I don't have to do too much effort other than hit play and watch it on Netflix, that I can give certain things a pass, but I would probably be a little bit harder on it if it was in the theater. I would say of the 3 movies that have come out recently for Netflix, Extraction, and what's the Charlize Theron movie?
The old boy.
Yasha?
The Old Guard.
The Old Guard, and then this one, Project Power. I would probably put them in that order, with Extraction first, The Old Guard, and then this one. It's not a bad movie by any means. I just don't think it's doing anything particularly special. Although I will say, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Jamie Foxx are good in it. And one of the things I did like about Jamie Foxx in this movie is that it felt like he played against type, and at least in some of the movies I've seen him in for the most part. And it also made me feel more comfortable. Not that I wasn't comfortable. I shouldn't say comfortable, but it gave me more something to see of a sample case of him if they ever do the Spawn movie. And I was like, okay, yeah, he could work. So I think that it did that and it benefited from that for me. But yeah, other than that, I would say it's fine. Nothing too crazy and nothing too specific about it. Memorable. There's some scenes that are in there that are kind of cool, but not too much other than that. But I would say it's a solid watch.
How about you, Yasha? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bobby and I really see eye to eye when it comes to this film because I was thinking along the same lines of that. I was just basically, when it was all said and done and I watched the movie, I was kind of presented with a question of what did I just watch? What really did this movie have for me that I enjoyed so much? Because I enjoyed it. I kind of liked it, I should say. But to Bobby's ranking of the past three movies that they just did, I think I would rank them probably the same: Extraction, Old Guard, and then this movie. It wasn't great by any means or any stretch. I felt like I had a lot of questions at the end of the movie that I'm not sure either I missed in regards to them not really explaining some of what was going on, or they just didn't decide. They just decided not to address it, and I was kind of lost when it came to that, and it kind of frustrated me to the point. But not so much that it's like it's like I'm like what, I could watch this again and see if I missed it, or if they just didn't go over some of the explanations of everybody's motive, I guess you could say, in this movie. Is it something that you would absolutely need to definitely watch? Probably not. And I think Bobby's definition and explanation is probably the best. The way that you can actually say it is like maybe we're going a little easier on it because we didn't have to do too much to go out and see it. We just had to literally press play. If it was a theatrical release, then there might be a different, a little bit of a harsher criticism. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it like a 5. You can take it or leave it. The special effects were very, very cool. The action was a lot of fun. But I mean, aside from that, I didn't really see anything that really grabbed me when it came to this movie. It was lacking, I think, story for me in the sense that I wasn't really clear as to what some of the characters could do or what their motivation was. So, but yeah, that's it.
So that is Project Power, now available on Netflix. I guess that dropped this weekend, right? This first weekend it's been out.
Yeah.
Well, another new release that Michelle and I watched, not on Netflix, was something that's new to VOD right now, and this is a Russian film called Sputnik. That I hadn't heard of and was kind of perusing the Apple TV app and came across it and did like a little quick Rotten Tomatoes check. And I was like, actually, and not only that, but then like just kind of Googled some reviews and was seeing a lot of positive talk about it. So I was like, I've never heard of this. I've never seen a trailer. Let's just watch it. And this is a movie. It's set in 1983. Yeah, set in 1983. Basically, two cosmonauts have an incident in space and bring something back to Earth, and it goes from there. I am curious, Michelle, to know what you've thought about this movie. So yes, I'm going to go to you first. what did you think of Sputnik?
Oh, okay. I don't think it was a bad film. I think it was very predictable. But at the same time, it was still an enjoyable watch, kind of from the start to the finish. It's funny. I have no issues with foreign films and reading subtitles, but there's something weird that happened with our subtitles. Like it didn't sync right, or the technology was, I don't know. Sometimes it was like, I don't think that's what they said. And sometimes it would skip things. And I'm like, was that important? I don't know. It just kind of flashed. So if anything, I feel like it was like a technical issue sometimes. But yeah, no, overall I think it's fine. I think the storyline is fine. Like I said, it's predictable, but not in like a bad way. I thought the actors actually were pretty good. The two leads, I will say, I'll put it that way, that the female lead and the male lead, I think were actually pretty good. no, I enjoyed it. I don't think there's a lot really there for me to dissect, but I didn't hate it or anything. It was just kind of an enjoyable little sci-fi scary movie.
Yeah, going like first, having never seen a trailer for this, having not, even heard of the movie and scrolling through, like I said, the Apple TV app and seeing like a poster for it, I was like, oh, it's a space movie that involves an alien. This is basically like an Alien remake almost, and, I will say I get what you're saying about the predictability, but at the same time, I think the movie went down a different road than it could have. And overall, I enjoyed it. I didn't think, didn't like knock it out of the park, but overall, I thought it was a good movie that kind of changed up what could have just been almost a straight up Alien remake, and it didn't do that. So I was thankful for that. Yeah, like the subtitle problem we had. Like, for instance, like we started the movie and it didn't automatically give us English subtitles. I had to like go into the app and like turn it on. And then there was just something about the automated version of subtitles we were getting that I felt like they were always accurate, but they never like, sometimes they just wouldn't sit there long enough for you to even finish. And I can be usually a pretty quick reader when it comes to subtitles, but there were times where I'm like, man, if it looked like it would pop up and it'd be like 2 lines, I'd be like, man, I better read this fast because it's probably going to go away in no time.
Yeah.
And then there were times where it felt like it flashed like subtitles that we didn't get to see. Like it like almost flickered really quick.
Yeah.
It was weird. I mean, I got the entire premise of the movie. I don't think I missed anything really, but we had more so than most foreign films. I felt like we had to be on our toes. reading
I felt like there was some serious effort to keep up with it.
But overall, I thought it was a good movie. That, yeah, like I said, could have just been another typical, we found an alien in space and what happens, like kind of movie. And I thought it did something a little different. Maybe there was some stuff that was just a matter of lost in translation, not literally with the subtitles, but just something about like this film being a foreign film that didn't quite hit with me correctly that maybe it would have if I had been Russian. I don't know. There were times I felt like the score was a bit much. There were scenes where I felt like the score was trying to make this effort to make these moments really big that felt unnecessary. And that actually, I think, kind of got in the way at times. But overall, I thought it was an enjoyable movie. I mean, if you're kind of missing these kind of tentpole summer films that we're not really getting this summer, and you're looking for something that kind of fill the space. And I'm not saying this is a major studio tentpole film, but it's a genre film that maybe will fill that space. And I'd say it's worthy of checking out.
Yeah.
As long as you don't mind reading subtitles. That was Sputnik. It's available now on VOD.
No, yeah, I agree. It's definitely worthy of a check out. If you're into sci-fi alien films, it's for sure check it out. Like it's not something that you should be like, oh no, yeah. I was surprised. I was really kind of like, really, we want to watch this tonight? Like I'll say, like looking at it, like the
poster,
the poster of it on thing. I was like, this looks weak, and you're like, no, come on, the ratings are good. I'm like, all right. I'll watch it. And I was like, actually, it's kind of enjoyable.
See, it worked out.
It did.
For the most part.
Yeah, I would just say it worked out, honestly. But yeah. I will say there's times like that we'll pick movies that have posters that look very, really? And they end up being very, this one worked out, though.
No, like I said, I mean, based on the poster alone, I was pretty skeptical, but it was like, because in the app, in Apple TV app anyway, when you go to a movie to look just at the details, it'll show you a Rotten Tomato score. And I think I saw it was like 90%.
Yeah, it was high. I was like, oh, wow.
So then my first skepticism was, well, how many reviews was it? And
right,
so I went in
7.
I went into the app and it was like 60 something, I want to say, reviews.
Yeah.
It was a lot higher than I expected. I was thinking like 15 or something, and no, it was actually a lot higher. So I was like, okay. And then Googling some reviews, I was like, hey, there's a lot of positive stuff out there. All right, let's check it out. Anyway, that was Sputnik.
No, I would definitely recommend checking it
Bobby, you watched some other stuff though, not recent stuff, but stuff that I think you hadn't seen yet, and maybe something you watched again. What else did you see this week?
Oh, I'm slow.
Yeah, I had mentioned that. I mentioned last week that I was going to finish Umbrella Academy season 2 and talk about it, and I did. I finished it, and I would say that pretty much as Yasha mentioned that it gets better in the back half of the episodes, but I also enjoyed the front half. So I think for me this season was really solid. I'm still trying to figure out if I like it more than the first season. I don't know.
Hmm.
I think that because of the idea that you already know these characters and you're kind of going along with them already in the second season, that kind of gives it an edge in that way. But aside from that, just in terms of story and some of the other elements, I'm still not quite sure if I know if I feel like the first season was better or the second season. But ultimately, I enjoyed this second season. And like Yasha mentioned, I'm really curious and anxious to see where they go with the season 3 based on how season 2 ended. And anytime you mess with time, it always creates such a weird thing. And so I want to see how some of that plays out. And that's all I'll say about that. But I absolutely did love the second season a lot more than I thought I was going to going into it, just because I remember for that first season, it took me a while to get into it fully. But I don't know if that was just distraction or whatnot. But yeah, I do think that this second season was, now that I think about it a little bit more refined than the first season. Even though I still say that the second season maybe had an episode or two that you could have trimmed down into one episode, or maybe altogether cut them in a certain sort of way and put them onto other episodes. Even though it was what 10 episodes this season, sometimes they just seem to find those episodes where they kind of drag the plot a little bit for whatever reason, maybe just to fill the order. But yeah, I did enjoy it though.
Nice. Umbrella Academy season 2. Anything else?
Yeah, I got a chance to watch Interstellar, like I said I would, to be able to talk a little bit more about it.
The
And
second watch.
after I watched it, yes, second watch, as far as I know, I can't remember if I saw it a second time and this would be the third, but
I had to think about it too.
ultimately,
I was pretty sure I
yeah,
hadn't, but I had to think about it.
I, same. I'm pretty sure I hadn't, but ultimately, I came out of it feeling the same way I guess I did the first time, which was I already had a lot of love and affection for this movie, just based on the story and a lot of the different things that go on within the plot and some of the themes and messages in the movie. So watching it a second time just kind of strengthened that. I don't think I came out of it loving it more, and it definitely wasn't a less thing. So it was still right there on par with the first time I saw it and how I felt about it. I am curious though, because I know David, I paid particularly close attention to this when I watched it the second time. And you were saying in last week that you still have problems with the last 30 minutes of the film. And I'm kind of curious what that is really.
I wouldn't
I mean, I don't
say.
know that.
I don't know if I would say I have problems. I just feel like there's a definite shift in the tone of the movie, I guess is the best way
Yeah.
to put it. And I, even though I like the way the movie ends, I also do recognize, like, I feel like I'm watching one kind of movie up until that shift happens. Like I don't know. I think I said this last week. Maybe I didn't say this exactly, but for instance, when I was watching it that second time recently, there's that really tense scene. I'm not going to give spoilers, but there's this really tense scene where they have to accomplish something and basically to survive. And it's incredibly well shot. It's a really great scene. And I just remember in that moment, I was sitting there watching a movie going, my God, like, this is a really great movie. Like,
Hmm.
but then when the shift happens, I will admit, even though I do like what he does, I feel like that's the moment where it pulls the movie back slightly from being incredible. If
Okay.
you will. Like, I don't think it's bad. It's just there's something about it
Hmm.
that I recognize for those people who I think have a big problem with that last kind of 30 minutes of the movie. I can understand, like, I can understand it, and it's hard to kind of, without talking spoilers, to really
Yeah.
share what I'm thinking, if that makes
So to
sense.
not get
Right.
spoilery that or anything, but like to pinpoint the moment, are you talking about post event horizon?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes.
Okay. Like from that point on?
Right.
Okay.
So does that answer your question, Bobby?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. No, I get that, and it makes complete sense because it does shift.
Mm-hmm.
There's something different that happens there.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, and I can understand why people could come away feeling that way. I just didn't know your particular reason for it, and it's all valid. I do like, and from my perspective of it, is just that it's it pays off things that were set up earlier that you just didn't even know that they were connected in that
Yeah.
way. So,
I mean,
but
it's just
yeah, I get what you're saying.
it's like you have a movie that for the most part is pretty scientifically grounded, and then
Right.
to take his story a step beyond, which you would expect him to do, he has to go past that. And that's the
Hmm.
point he goes past it, and you kind of then it's up to you to go, do I like this or don't I like this? I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else that you watched?
Yeah, I have mentioned again another movie that I had not seen that I was going to try and watch, and that was The Fifth Element. And you guys had all
Oh,
had a
that's
chance to
right.
watch it, and so I checked it out, and I gotta say,
Lay it on us. All right.
I'm so nervous right now.
I feel like I should put
I
the
don't.
shot up just to see the
I'm
reaction.
so nervous right now because I put so much out on it. So now I'm like, oh,
And it's a movie that's kind of got a cult following to it that,
this little one.
it's not just Michelle like putting her like thoughts on your head, like everybody.
Yeah.
Like,
Right,
Uh huh.
and I.
But
Oh, go
So,
ahead, Josh.
Bobby,
Oh, so
no, like,
I can
stop
complete.
leading us in suspense. Like, tell us what you think.
No, I'm going to.
So, stop putting
I
meat around the
completely
bush. Let's
see
go, man. All
why.
right.
I completely see why everyone says it has a cult following, because it completely feels like one of those type of cult following movies that it's not going to latch on to everyone like a Big Trouble in Little China kind of thing. And I saw it and I watched it and I was like, okay, all right. I
he
didn't.
didn't hate it, but he didn't love
I
it.
didn't hate it.
No.
No, I exactly. I would say I landed not dead center in the middle on it, maybe a little bit above that, but not to the point where I came out of it completely understanding why everyone loves it so much or why it has that. At the time, I was like, and this was right after I watched it, I was like, well, what is it that made it such a thing for everyone? Was it specifically within that time of watching it and what was out at that time is what made people kind of cling to it? And I couldn't quite nail it down. But then, like, as we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I see that it has a cult following and it has those sensibilities to what cult following movies have that not everyone is completely attached to it in the same sort of way and have that love for it in that way that you can kind of keep watching it and keep watching it and then you know the lines and everything, but it feels like one of those movies completely that you would get into that mindset with. It's just that I think maybe because I didn't watch it at that time and I'm watching it now and I'm seeing it for a first time, it doesn't stick to me in that way. And I don't know if it's one of those things where if I watched it multiple times, it would become that for me, or if I would ever just be like, I like it, and if it was on, I would watch it. But it's not something that I would just go back and say, "Oh, I need to go watch The Fifth Element again," because of fill in the blank. In fact, I have some questions about it because some things I didn't quite understand within the story, which had no effect on how I felt about the movie as a whole. It's just that I literally was like, well, I don't understand how this, because I don't know if I missed it or if they just didn't explain it.
Could be that they didn't explain something, but I think The Fifth Element is one of those films that when it came out, it's not that there weren't films that took place in outer space or sci-fi films that were comedy films. I think that up to that point, the films that took place in outer space that were kind of more on the comedic side or the action side, if it was the comedic, it was like over the top, goofball, satire, like Spaceballs. Like you're looking at it in a totally strong side. Or if it has a lot of action, you're looking at it more as like Star Wars or a sci-fi action like Alien or something like that. And I think I'm not saying this movie like broke the mold or anything, but I think it's hard for me to think of films up to the time that movie came out that kind of balanced the whole action, comedy, witty, sci-fi parts all together as one film. And I think that's why it kind of hit well. I also think it was kind of Bruce Willis was still very much in kind of his not just the prime of his life, but the prime of his career. It was very, very at the top there, if not starting to really climb even further. I think because he was still riding big waves off of the Die Hard films and other stuff. But yeah, and then like Mila is really young and she's just kind of starting out her career in this film, and she's very captivating to look at, and she's good. Like she plays her part really well. Like she's very quick, very witted. It's very smart. Not that she even says a lot, but what she does say, I think, is timed out really well. So I think people kind of feel like in the nerd culture, like at home in this film because they get a little bit of everything. And I think up to that point, most films that are in this kind of genre don't have a little bit of everything. It's very strongly in one way or another way. And I think that's kind of why it captivated so many people.
Yeah, and to echo that, I think you're right with Bruce Willis. I think it also has a lot to do with the fact that I think he still enjoyed his job then. I think he was given like original projects, even though they were still a little bit of the same. But it's just he was very much towards the peak, if not climbing just above where his real stardom was before it kind of faltered, and he had to have the I See Dead People movie kind of resurge here because it was kind of on the downswing of things. But I think, like you said, it's like he really did enjoy still his work. Like now it's like you can offer him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and he'll do a movie. Like he's doesn't care if it's direct to video, doesn't care if it's direct to Netflix or whatever the case may be. He's just doing whatever, whenever. Yeah, sure, I'm all in. And Mila was just as good in that movie. I thought she was fantastic, and what she said was just profound. And I think might be maybe if you had watched the movie when it first came out, it's almost like I call it in my head. I kind of call it the David theory because I remember when David watched Tommy Boy, and you were just like, it's okay, but you had watched it decades after it had first come out. So I was like, maybe if you had watched it when it first came out, right, you'd really, really have the appreciation for it because it would have maybe spoken a little bit more to our immature sense of humor. Yeah. Like, even though I think we all have still very much an immature sense of humor at times today, but I'm still with my friends sometimes and quoting "fat guy in a little coat," and it just still makes me laugh. And it's just that's the type of thing where it's like you watch a movie that came out at that time, you have the appreciation for it of that time. Not many of them stand the test of time if you haven't seen it when it came out, I guess, or you can gravitate to it when it first comes out.
So do you want to ask some of your questions now, Bobby, or do you want to wait till we're off air?
I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen this movie, so it's not like I'd be spoiling anything by asking any
It's been
particular
out for a
question.
day or two.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the questions I had, I guess it depends on how much you remember the movie, but so Mila Jovovich character, she is the fifth element, and those race of creatures or robots or whatever you want to call them, are they all fifth elements? What made her the fifth element? It was because she was the only one left, and they all could have been that thing in the middle of the
Well,
elements. Or
Michelle, I guess you can answer.
I was gonna say, I think they're kind of like the protector of the fifth element. Like she was created somehow. I don't
because
know
that was
how. They don't really
yeah,
answer
so
how she was
that's
created. That's kind of the thing.
Right.
She just kind of
they
exists on the planes of reality, and she just kind of is there. She's in a sarcophagus, like, and the robot machines are just kind of the protectors of the fifth element. Like they're just an old ancient race on this planet, or I guess Earth, or I don't know what.
No, yeah, they're not from Earth. But
Yeah, no, that's right. They were on
no,
it. So
definitely not.
I had to like
So
pull back, but yeah, like they're just the protectors of her. Like we don't know what planet she's from, when she was created, how old she is. Like we have none of that information. She's just
like
an
it almost
entity.
seems like, if everything had gone according to plan, it's not like we would have seen her in this state. I don't think. Like,
Right.
it's just because of how things played out that they had to basically rebuild her, and I don't
Yeah.
know. That makes sense.
so I had to rewatch the scene like 3 different times because it just didn't make sense to me because of. So here's what happened in the movie where she comes about. Um, there are those warrior alien creatures that shoot down the ship of those alien beings that are friendly. And then that was going to be them helping out the humans. But that ship got shot down and destroyed. And then a scientist human says, well, there's still one survivor. And then they cut to a scene and you see them carrying a case and it has a hand of one of those creatures in it. And so they then, from that hand, because I guess it has cells and all this stuff that they explain through their science, is that we can replicate and bring about the fifth element, I guess. And it becomes Mila Jovovich character that they reproduced off the hand of this old creature
But it,
thing.
but it
That
wasn't. That wasn't like a leftover hand of one of those creatures. That was what it was left of. Because you see them take the fifth element from Earth because it's not safe there anymore, and that's just a piece
oh,
of that they were trying to return to Earth because they were like, "Hey, we're going to bring this back at some point," and they're trying to come back to bring it back,
Yeah.
and then they're, am I making
Thwarted.
sense?
okay. Yeah. So I'd have to go back and rewatch that part because maybe I missed that.
I guess the
But
fact
yeah,
that it
I
looks
didn't.
like it's in that thing makes it kind of look similar to the way those creatures look, but that's not what was happening
Yeah.
there.
Right. That was like
Okay.
the encasement
That
of
she was in.
the shards that were left over from, I guess, her first incarnation of existence, I guess.
Right.
And so
That
from
makes
that they
more
were able to
sense then.
regenerate her into her new form.
Yeah. That's okay. That makes sense. Because I was like, well, how does she look human if that hand looks so not human? Like I couldn't put the two together and correlate it. But okay,
Gotcha.
that makes a little more sense.
And I haven't watched the beginning of that film in forever. Because I feel like
And that was
most of
the
the
other
times I
thing.
watch it, it's from flipping through TV and I'm like, oh, hey, it's gone. Like, we'll just leave it here. It's always like in a
That
random
was
place.
more of a plot point in the beginning, more so than a specific question. But
Yeah.
one of the creatures gets left behind, but locked in the pyramid or whatever.
I
And
guess you never see
it
him
was like,
again, right?
yeah, you never
Yeah.
see him again. It's like
It's
I don't
just-
know how long they live, but at the same time, it was like,
You think it'd be
getting
like a
less out of that?
leftover robot-looking
Yeah.
guy? Like, yeah.
yeah. But
It's one of those things.
well, yeah, it was one of those things. I
He
just,
magically
I guess I guess
disappears.
you got.
Once the door closes, he magically disappears.
Yeah.
Right.
that material is actually very biodegradable. It just turns into dust after
Yeah.
much time.
There you go.
That's what we tell the
Let's
kids.
go with
Right?
that. Biodegradable.
He's fine,
Biodegradable
honey. He
wood.
just
That's
turns
what-
to dust. There's no
Right.
feelings there. He's fine.
I'll take
He's
it.
happy as dust.
Any other quick questions about Fifth Element?
I mean, no, it was just smaller stuff. That was the literal. That was the literal question I had because I couldn't understand it, and I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense. The other stuff is more stuff like the beginning of the movie with that creature kind of thing,
Oh,
where it's like, it's not that big a deal, but I was kind of curious.
And before we get to our second half of the show, our main segment, I guess just touch on really quick. I mean, I did watch something else this week, and not that I'm going to get really deep into a film that's on Disney Plus now called Magic Camp.
Oh.
But for any parents who are
For any
like,
parents
hey,
listening.
there's a new Disney Plus film, Magic Camp, definitely a kids movie. It's live action. The actor's name, the lead.
Andy Bovine.
Is that his name?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the chick that was in Community, and I cannot think of her name.
Get Jillian or
Jillian.
Gillian.
Gillian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's in it. Basically, it's about a camp for like kids who want to be magicians or that are already magicians and want to get better. And I will say it was actually pretty enjoyable. I thought it was a pretty good movie as kid movies go. Like I thought it was even worth bringing up. Like I think the kids enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of magic in it. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. So
No, I actually did too. I enjoyed it actually.
Yeah.
I thought it's very kid friendly, and yeah, there's definitely not like crazy magic that we see like in Vegas sometimes, but there was some really awesome magic tricks, and so that kind of helps keep the kids engaged too, I think.
Yeah.
But then there's some kid humor stuff, but there was some jokes that touched for adults. Like there's a few jokes that you and I chuckled at. The kids were like, "What?" We're like, "Don't worry about it."
don't worry about them. There's always something here for the adults.
There's always something. It's Disney. There's always
Yeah.
a few to keep the adults in the game. But
Right.
no, it was entertaining. I was like, I could see watching it again if I had to. It would be fine. And I'd recommend it for other parents that are like, we've gone through everything Disney Plus. I'd be like, but this just dropped. Have you watched this one yet? And they'd be like,
Right.
oh, thank God, something new. I'd be like, yeah, there you go.
So
Yeah.
Magic Camp, Disney Plus.
Magic Camp's good.
Looking for a kids movie, something new.
I
for the
just
kids to
recently
watch.
saw the trailer for that. I wasn't aware that it came out this Friday. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of interested in watching it.
Oh, yeah?
Because it looks like a
Nice.
very silly, easy comedy to
Yeah.
watch.
It is, yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, all right. I'm like, yeah, all right, I can get it. I can get down on that. Like, I'll watch that sooner or later. I'm not gonna rush out and try to watch it like I did Project Power this week, but I definitely will probably take the time to watch it sooner or later. Just like Disney has a new, not Disney, Netflix has an animated series or show that's on there that I'm interested in watching called Animal Crackers.
The one about magic.
It looks
Oh, sorry.
absolutely, yeah.
What'd you say it was? Sorry, I
where
talked over you.
Animal Crackers. Animal Crackers. It just looks silly. It's about a guy who eats animal crackers and he turns into the animals that he eats. Enter
Okay.
chaos. Like, I don't know. But it's an animated feature. It looks like a cartoon. It looks like a Disney movie. I'm going to watch that sooner or later. It looks ridiculously silly and kind of funny. And so, yeah, I'll strap in and watch it. I'm not
Nice.
above that.
Well, unless
There was
anybody's.
one-
Oh yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
No, I was seeing if I could find it real quick, but I don't think I can find it fast enough. But there was one that I saw that's coming out on Netflix that looked interesting. It was animated as well, and it looked like it was about these magicians, but don't know what it was called, and it was pretty new. I don't know if it's out yet or if it's about to come out, but if I can see it or find it, I'll mention it at some point, especially if I watch it.
All right. With that, we will move into our other main topic of the week, and that is our top 5 list of the week. Which more lately, it's been top 5 lists every other week. You know, we do a top 5 list when we feel like it, basically.
It's COVID.
This time around, it was my turn to come up with a topic. and I decided to have us count down our top 5 sequels that we think are better than the original film. I guess just to clarify, because it was asked just before we started recording, does that just really mean part twos of franchises, say if there's more than 2 movies? And I mean, really going by the title sequels, it really could technically mean any movie past the first film. I have a feeling most of our entries will be part twos, but we'll see. That's the fun of this, right? So with that, I guess because I came up with this lovely list, Bobby, you get to go first and give us your number 5 sequel that you think is better than the original.
It's really weird the timing of me doing this list and what my number 5 is, because I just saw the original. It was on TV, and I was just flipping channels and I caught it from the beginning, and I forgot how funny that original one was. So when I say that the sequel I found to be better and funnier, it's saying something. And so my number 5 sequel that I feel is better than the original is Rush Hour 2. And I just felt like, man, the chemistry between Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan and that really comes together in that second one. And in the first one, Jackie Chan is the fish out of water as he comes to LA. And then it becomes Chris Tucker, the fish out of water, when he goes to visit Lee. And it becomes this whole thing. And just the comedy. One scene in particular that I always remember is when Chris Tucker is in the club and he's doing karaoke and he's singing Michael Jackson, and everybody's in there stone faced. But I just remember laughing, cracking up in the theater just because of how just Chris Tucker's voice most times just makes me laugh. He doesn't even necessarily have to be saying something funny. It's just the pitch and tone of his voice is just so silly. But the jokes were that much better to me. The chemistry and the timing, everything about it is just, I love that one. And that's my number 5.
Very nice. Yasha, that brings us to you. I get the feeling you're looking over at that list like I'm going to be doing here in a second, trying to figure out what your number 5 is.
Yeah.
What is your number 5 sequel that you think?
This is tough, man. This is really tough. This is really tough. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, it's tough, man. I'm trying to figure out what my number 5 is.
You got this.
You know, I'm gonna I got this. Thanks for the pep talk, David. I'm gonna throw a curveball out there, and I really enjoyed this series all the way up towards till the very ending of the series, but I felt like the first 3 of this movie were just really, really strong, and I really enjoyed the continuation of this character. Not to mention, I'm a fan of this actor. And everything that they've done with the first 3 movies of this series. So I'm going to actually throw this out there. My number 5 I want to put out there is The Bourne Supremacy. I think Matt Damon is a beast, and I think that the role that he did with Jason Bourne was fantastic. And the continuation of that story of where they're going and everything, development of that character is just spot on and really, really engaging, and I really enjoyed it a lot. So that's what I'm going to put out there as my number 5, being better than the first one, and that is The Bourne Supremacy.
Very nice. Bourne Supremacy. Yasha's number 5. Michelle, what is your number 5 sequel that you think is better than the original?
Well, I don't think you're going to argue with me on my choice. I think you guys are going to all be like, "That's your number 5." But
like it should be higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
But and the thing is, I will say, like, I feel that the first film of this franchise is really good, and I enjoy it a lot. And I know a lot of people were actually a little let down by the first film, and that's why when the sequel came out as strong as it did, everybody was stupid happy. But but I like the first one a lot too, honestly. But yeah, the second one is a stronger film. And I will say it's funny because the first time I watched the sequel of this film and this franchise, I was kind of like, oh, eh. But I will say, upon multiple viewings of this film, I've gone, okay, yeah, no, I get it. So, but you guys are going to be like, what? My word, number 5. And that is Captain America Winter Soldier. Again, I really like the first one a lot, and I know some people it was kind of a miss for them. But the second one, as far as catapulting the storyline of Cap and of Bucky, it does. I mean, it's basically the catalyst to just everything that happens in the MCU. So it's a really important film, and it's also just done really, really, really well. So, yeah.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier.
You're number 5. Guess that brings us to me and my list that I'm figuring out as we go.
It's pulling the Yasha this week,
Pulling the
kids.
Yasha. This is when I came up with this idea, I was like, oh, I definitely won't have a problem with 5, but I don't think it'll be like too hard to whittle it down. And then I started thinking and digging around the internet to kind of get my brain thinking about other movies maybe I forgot about. And I was like, man, I could go crazy with this list, like really crazy, especially when you consider that we're not just talking about part 2s. Like, one example, a franchise, Harry Potter. I love all those movies, but there are absolutely other movies past Sorcerer's Stone that are better than the first film. But I don't have any Harry Potter movies on here. And there's other franchises that are like that, big long franchises that are, movies that are way better than the first film. Bond movies. I mean, God, you could you could go crazy with the James Bond franchise.
Movies in, my God.
So this was a tough one for me. Like, I have a list in front of me now with 7 movies, and that's already whittled down to 7. And I'm like, man, I got to knock 2 of these off the list. I'm like, ugh, like that's rough. So I think pulling an audible, I'm going to go with my number 5 is Evil Dead 2. Which Evil Dead, I love Evil Dead. I love that first
I knew
film.
that was going to show up.
But Evil Dead 2, I remember
I knew that was...
when I finally watched these, which, I mean, it's been a few years now since I've seen them. But I sadly watched these movies as a horror film fan. I watched these movies late in the mini horror films that I've seen. Like, I saw them too late. When I finally watched these in order, I remember going, oh man, Evil Dead, this is a solid or B horror film, man. This is great. And then Evil Dead 2 came along and I was like, holy shit. Like, this is a damn good movie. He took it a step above when he made the sequel to that franchise. And I couldn't, leave it out of my top 5. So Evil Dead 2, that's going to be my first one on the list, my number 5. Cool. Moving right along, back to Bobby. You're number 4, Bobby.
Yeah, I feel like my number 4 is, I don't know if it'll show up on everyone's list, but it feels like it's one of those ones that's kind of a no-brainer. And there's not really too much to say about it, but it's The Dark Knight. And while I enjoyed Batman Begins, it's not one that I typically would revisit of the trilogy. It always falls to The Dark Knight, and it's just such a solid movie. And the introduction of the Joker and Heath Ledger as the Joker, considering how much I was really not for it before the movie came out, and seeing him play that role, and then to see what he did with it, it was just such a transformative role, and just everything that came from it. It still is one of the best sequels to an original movie of all time.
Good pick. The Dark Knight, you're number 4. Back to Yasha, you're number 4. As he thinks. Looks over the list.
The gears.
Yeah, it's a toss-up between a couple. I'm going to actually go with, this is probably one of my all-time favorite movies in the MCU, and that should give it away right there. And I'm going to go with, I enjoyed the first one a lot. I mean, I thought it was great, but the second one just went a whole nother level with me, and I still find it fantastic and can watch it. And I'm talking about Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That movie to me is just everything when it comes to the development of the character and the storyline. And I mean, there's not much more I can say when it comes to what Michelle just said. It's legit one of my favorite movies in the MCU. It always ranks in the top 5 or top 3 for me easily.
Captain America, The Winter Soldier, you're number 4. That was Michelle's number 5. And then we go back to Michelle. Michelle, you're number
Back
4.
to me. So my number 4 actually is a film, and it's kind of, it almost falls into like the James Bond situation. Like there's so many films within this franchise that are very much better than the first. Although some people, even in this room, would argue the first is quite a good film. I don't think the first film's a great film, but there's other films throughout the whole franchise that are hits and misses, and it depends on which generation of people you talk to and which generation of the sequence of these franchise films fall into. But I will say, if I were to compare one movie versus the very first movie, I will always say that Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan is by far much better than Star Trek: The Original Motion Picture. The storyline alone is, I think, much more true to Star Trek and what we're all used to seeing. And I think it's just a better formulation. I feel like the actors, even though they've all known each other for so many years on the show, I think in the movie, I feel like when they do film, they feel more at home in the second film with each other. I feel like they relax in the roles a little bit more. And I think they allow themselves to be completely the way they are comfortable on TV versus how they were in that first movie. The first movie, they seemed like they were questioning what they've been doing for years. And then the second film, they were just like, no, we're going back to the board. We're doing our thing that we've been doing for years, and we like it, and that's how we are. And it just feels like Star Trek to me, that film. And the story is just leaps and bounds better than the first one. I mean, it just is. And yeah, I mean, is there still just a little hint of the Star Trek silliness that you get from the TV shows in that one? Yeah, of course. But I think that's what makes Star Trek great. And yeah, in my opinion, if I were to rank any of, especially in the original generation of Star Trek, any of those films versus the first one, Wrath of Khan, hands down. Stupid good.
All right, Wrath of Khan. Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, you're number 4. Excuse me. Coming to my number 4, mine has been mentioned already as a number 4, and I'll just say it really quick. That is The Dark Knight. I will also put that in the number 4 spot. Yeah, I mean, kind of like everything you said, Bobby. Yeah, I like Batman Begins, but Dark Knight is just... it's other level good compared to Batman Begins. I mean, maybe one thing I could give Batman Begins over the second film is that I like his suit better in the first movie. But other than that,
it's funny you say that. I was
yeah,
going to say
why?
the one thing because I was going to say the one thing I like over the Dark Knight that I like from Batman Begins is I prefer Christian Bale's voice as Batman in Batman Begins over the Dark Knight.
Oh, because he starts to go like even deeper with the grunt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
No, you're right. But yeah, the suit in the first film, I dig the suit in the first movie. If there's one thing and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, there's one thing I don't like about that franchise is where he goes with the suit. Like, I get the idea that he can move his head better and everything, but it doesn't look right. I'm not a fan of that weird detached. You can see his neck. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be able to see Batman's neck. Like, what are we doing here? Anyway, yeah, Dark Knight, damn solid sequel. I mean, like you said, Bobby, also with Heath Ledger being cast as Joker, I think most of us, just about anybody, probably was pretty skeptical of that casting, and he was just incredible. It's a damn good movie. How do I not put Dark Knight on the list? So Dark Knight, that's my number 4. Then back to you, Bobby, for your number three.
So my number three is an action movie, and in fact, it's an action movie that I really would feel like if I were to sit down today and make a top 10 list of all time, it might fall in there. I don't know. I'd really have to think about it, but I love this movie so much. And really enjoyed the first one, but this second one just seemed to take it to another level. And that's the Raid 2. Man, I can't tell you. You guys know me and how often I rewatch movies, and this is legitimately a movie I think I've watched at least 6 or 7 times, and that's a lot.
Wow, that's a lot for
Because
you.
I don't
Holy
typically
cow.
rewatch movies unless I rewatch them in the theater, and I'm saying I've watched that outside the theater that many times because I think I saw it in the theater 3 times. So I've seen this movie a lot. So that is definitely why it's my number 3 of all time, or in this list of top 5 sequels.
What's so funny about that too is, and I agree with you, man, those 2 Raid movies are incredibly good. But what's funny is, you know how much I do rewatch stuff, and sadly I think I've only seen the Raid 2 the one time. Like I own a copy of it. I have a Blu-ray copy of the movie, and I still haven't rewatched it. Like, and I've been dying for a rewatch of both of those movies, like back to back. I've been like thinking, man, this needs to happen sometime soon. I'm. It's been way too long since I've watched them. But it's funny that of all the movies you have rewatched a million times, I actually have only seen it the once.
The way you only seen it.
Well, we're too busy rewatching West Wing.
I've never even seen it.
There is that.
Right. You never seen either, or just the second one?
Either.
Oh man,
I haven't seen either.
I thought I
haven't seen
remembered
either of them
that,
either.
but I just couldn't.
Not any of them. I'm like looking right now on platforms to see like, well, what platform is it on that I can watch it? It looks like it's just on Amazon, and I'd be able to find it.
yeah, I can't recommend.
Yeah, there's
those
a
2 movies
version
enough.
of it. There's a version of the second one that uses English dub, and I watched that one once, and I guess it was fine. But I was so used to just watching it with subtitles that's my method of watching it. But I can understand why someone might want to listen to the dub and be able to check out all the action. But yeah.
All right, the Raid 2, your number 3. Yasha, back to you. Your number 3 sequel that is better than the original.
My number 3. All right, I'm going to put this out there because I think this movie did revolutionize a lot when it came to sequels in its aspect of it. Shit. Actually, I just changed my mind about that. Hold on a second. I mean, it's a fluid process. You're going to have to bear with me just a second here.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing as you this week, so I get it.
Well, we all know there's already 2 films that Yasha's already called out.
I know that there are 2
Last
already.
week.
It'd be awesome if one of them wasn't on the
I
list.
know. I'm gonna laugh.
I know.
It's gonna be
You
great.
guys just a real curveball. You know what? I think my number 2 is going to. My number 3 is going to be Terminator 2, Judgment Day. What can I say about that movie other than the shock factor when people weren't super familiar, and then learning that Arnold was the good guy opposed to being the bad. Just changing the level of scope of special effects and the storyline. Just a brilliant moving forward with these characters and still giving us a little bit of the same story, but adding a new twist to it. And I still really enjoy that movie. You know, it's been a really long time since I've watched it, but I was really thinking back on it and really thinking fondly of that. So that's what I'm going with, is Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Your number 3. Michelle, your number 3 sequel.
So I know, and I basically had what I'm going to say, and then what the movie I'm picking, and then there was another film that that kind of keeps popping in and out, and I'm like, should I, shouldn't I? So, but I'm gonna be good, and I'm gonna stick with keeping all of my films as true sequels. They're all number 2s, and this was a film that I had on, and I kicked it out, but I'm putting it back in. And it's already been said a few times, and that's The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, you guys have already said, honestly, it's the performances, the storyline, and then honestly, just the visuals. I think everything just they just turned the dial up a few more notches from the original. I actually still really like the original a lot, and I think Batman Begins is a really great film. But yeah, The Dark Knight just it dials it in and makes it takes the franchise to a whole new level. And this setup is just fantastic for the third one. But no, Heath Ledger obviously is a shining star in this film. But honestly, like I even like watching this film for some of the long, almost quiet segments that happen in it. There's so many times in this movie where there's things happening, but it's not like it's happening and there's like huge action sequences and nobody's talking. It's just kind of like a quiet segment that's just kind of going through, and it's just kind of it's this enjoyable moment of like, wow, this is just so much setup and build up for what happens in this movie. And no, this movie is insane. So yeah, The Dark Knight on the list.
Dark Knight, your number 3. My number 3 has also been mentioned at I think it was the number 4 spot, if I remember correctly. And that is, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. That's my number 3 sequel that was better than the original. I will say as a Trekkie that I definitely do have an appreciation for Star Trek the Motion Picture. But I don't disagree that Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, is leaps and bounds better, and also just truly sets the stage for the rest of that movie franchise with the original cast. Things they did with the look of like even just the uniforms have been called back to, and Star Trek Next Generation and beyond. Like I don't think we've ever called back to those original uniforms in motion picture ever. I could be wrong, but I don't think so because I haven't seen every Star Trek episode of everything. Anyway, but yeah, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is incredibly good. Yeah, as much as I do appreciate motion picture for what it is, I mean, I can't disagree that this is a classic version of a sequel, a part 2 especially, that is better than the first film, that did the job of putting a franchise really in a better direction to go from there. I can't imagine if they had tried to like keep the look of the motion picture and just keep going with that, what we would have ended up with. So.
It's funny because you've said, I know we've talked about it, that was a film that you as a kid watched a lot. And I watched that one a lot when I was a kid, like over and over. But it's funny because I don't think I ever saw Star Trek, the original picture, until I was an adult, basically. Like, I think college years. So for me, Star Trek, the movies in order, Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan is basically like the first movie to me. That's kind of that's one, and then Search for Spock is 2. Like for me, it's a very different sequence in my head. So yeah, and I remember the first time I watched the first one, I was like, oh, this movie's crap. I was like, of course. Now I know why my mom only let us watch the first one from number 2 on. I was like, this makes so much sense. Anyway,
it's just a movie not to go on a whole tangent about motion picture, but it has a completely different tone. It was going for a completely different kind of movie. Like, hey, let's take something that's beloved by, Trekkies, a show, and let's make a movie out of it, and let's make it big. Like, yeah. And luckily, they went away from that with part 2 and beyond.
Thank goodness.
With that, moving on to our number 2s. Bobby, take us to your number 2 sequel that you think is better than an original.
Number 2.
Yeah, my number 2. I don't know if I've ever had this movie on any of the lists that we've done. Some of you have had the original on some of your guys' list. And my sequel that I really love, recall seeing it in the theater and just eating it up to the nth degree is Aliens. Um, for me, I didn't see Alien until late in life. In fact, I want to say I only knew of Alien and the gist of it before I saw
Oh.
Aliens. So I think I actually fully saw Aliens first before I even had saw Alien, because I kind of knew what happened, but um, I guess the interest wasn't there enough for me to actually sit down and watch it until later in life. Um, but I do appreciate Alien, the first movie, for what it is. And interesting enough, it's an odd thing, and it concerns James Cameron's other movie that Yasha mentioned, which is Terminator 2, T2. I remember seeing that in the theater too, and loving it, just loving what Cameron did with it. And I agreed that it's a better movie, but oddly enough, I find myself liking the first Terminator more these days than Terminator 2.
Hmm.
And I can't quite put a finger on why, other than maybe just the scope and scale and it being a smaller, quieter movie, which you would think I could apply that to Alien over Aliens, but I think it still has more to do with I saw Aliens later than I did seeing Alien. But yeah, it's a weird sort of thing, but I do find myself gravitating more towards the first Terminator movie than the T2 movie. And I can't even remember the last time I saw the T2 movie over when I've seen the first Terminator. I can tell you it was been within the last 5 years I saw the first Terminator movie, but a longer period of time since I've seen T2. So it's probably one of those, if I ever get a chance, I need to go back and revisit, just because like it's hard to remember certain things at this point. But yeah, that's my number. Going back to my number two, it's Aliens.
All right, Aliens, your number two. Back to you, Yasha. Have you figured out your number two yet? Need some more time.
Gosh, man. Um, sorry about all the dead air space
No,
here.
yeah, you're good.
Okay, so my number two. Jesus. You know what? I'm gonna go with something that's already been said before, and I'm going with the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is my number two. That is my number two for. I mean, all the reasons and more that everybody's already said when it comes to how amazing this movie was, the performances. Bobby and I shared many a lunches talking about the pick of Heath Ledger being the Joker and the disapproval, and even down to how he looked, just just writhing over it and talking about that's not the Joker, that doesn't look like the Joker, it's not him, that's ridiculous, why would they do this? And then walking out thinking that was so much of that character that I couldn't even be happier than what they released. And that right there is probably my number two. I can still watch that movie, at least all the Joker scenes for sure, because they're intoxicating, they're captivating. You lose yourself and you forget completely that that is Heath Ledger, and it is a fantastic, fantastic role as well as a movie.
Dark Knight, your number two. All right, Michelle.
So yeah, my number two, again, it's a film that's been mentioned, but I love it. It's held a really solid place in my heart for a long time, and I enjoy it. It's probably actually one of my favorite action films of all time, and that is Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I was at an age when this movie came out. I didn't see it in the theater, but pretty quickly after it was released to video, I saw this movie for the first time as a kid, and I thought it was amazing. I was mesmerized by it. The special effects, just the whole storyline, and I remember like because I'd seen that one first, kind of watching that movie, and then like turning to my mom, being like, "Okay, so we got to watch this first one because I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I know what's going on in this one, but I'm like, what happened before this? And then, my mom rented the first one. And I remember watching the first one and it finishing and being like, yeah, And that was me as a kid. And even as an adult, I've revisited it and I've watched them in sequential order. And I've seen that first one quite a handful of times. And it has its valid points for sure. But for me, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those movies that it got made and they went, yeah, it's a good enough story, but we don't really have a lot of faith in this movie doing well or really building. And then I think it kind of found a really niche group of people that loved it. Hence why they were like, okay, we're going to do a sequel. But then James Cameron was like, not only are we going to do a sequel, we are going to blow the first one out of the water. And he just went for it. Like, he reached for the stars and he grabbed a few. It was pretty awesome. The storyline, I think, is exceptional. I think it's much richer and deeper than from the first film. I feel like that as a whole, it plays out better. And obviously, as we all have said, the special effects in Terminator 2 are just, at that time, they were off the charts amazing. Like, way, way high tech, more than we'd seen. And again, like, honestly, prior to that, I think as far as special effects go, it was another James Cameron film, The Abyss, that was probably like the standard at the time. And then James basically just went over his own awesomeness in special effects. But yeah, no, Terminator 2, gosh, I mean, think of the catchphrases that we all had going out of that movie when we were younger. And we still say it to this day, for God's sakes. Like, it's just, that movie just holds a place, I think, for a certain generation of people. And I think it's always going to.
Terminator 2. Judgment Day, your number 2. I guess there's really no reason to dwell on it, so I'll just mention that it's my number 2 as well.
That means I know what most of our number ones are.
Yeah, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. I mean, I love Terminator, the first film. I think it's a damn solid movie, and it is funny how it's kind of a similar kind of situation like the Alien and Aliens films that you talked about, Bobby. Like, Alien was kind of a smaller film, and Aliens, James Cameron comes in and really like just makes it so much bigger. And same with the Terminator and Terminator 2 situation. Like, I really love the first film, Terminator, but yeah, there's something about Terminator 2. I just, maybe, I don't know how old I was when that movie came out in theaters, but I remember the excitement surrounding seeing it. I remember seeing it in a movie theater and just how amazing it was, and just the buzz around that movie, and it does a job of really making it for even a wider audience than that first film. And I had seen that first film, and that's definitely an example of, as we've talked about before, that's an example of a movie I probably saw when I was too young to be seeing a movie like that. But, I love the first one, but Terminator 2, like, I'm not going to repeat everything you just said, Michelle, but it's basically everything you said. It's an incredibly good movie. The special effects, especially at the time, were kind of next level. And, yeah, it feels like an iconic film that is almost, I feel like, kind of expected to be on these kind of lists.
For sure. I mean, and even like for me, T2 is probably, it's actually, I can say it's easily within a top 5 of best like action films for me. Like, if you were like throw together just an action movie list, it probably pretty easily slide in number 5, and that's off the top of my head. But yeah, no, T2 it's almost like a quintessential action film to me. So.
All right, that takes us to our number 1s. And Bobby, you get to start us off. What is your number 1 sequel that is better than the original? Which I think Michelle seems pretty confident she knows what all of ours are.
I feel very confident. I would say in Bobby's, David's, and mine are the same. And Yasha is going to be a toss-up between 2 things.
Oh, I don't think Yasha's a toss-up either. I'm pretty sure I know Yasha's.
I'm pretty sure I know what Yasha's is, but it's a matter of if Yasha's going to say it or he's just going to say the other one. And I say that because I think he's going to hear what we all say and he's going to change his mind.
Wow. Oh,
Okay.
calling him out. Well, he still hasn't
Oh,
mentioned one
he's
of his
calling
other
Yasha
ones.
out right now. He's like, wait, what?
He still hasn't mentioned one of his other ones that he mentioned from last
I
week,
know,
right?
I know, but I know
So-
he's probably gonna mention the one of them. That's what I
Okay.
think he's gonna say.
Really, really fast.
Yeah.
And you can just give a
Well, let's
quick
go. Let's do this. Let's see what it is.
answer. No, back to the conversation we were just having. You enjoy and like and think T2 is better than T1. How do you feel about Alien and Aliens?
Oh,
Is it
I
the
was
same?
gonna
You feel
say,
Aliens
like,
is-
because you're right. We were doing, what was it? It was our top 5 sci-fi movies that took place in space, and Alien was on
Yeah.
my list. Yasha, I think you had Alien on your list, and I put Alien over Aliens, but I think Aliens is a fantastic sci-fi movie and a fantastic sequel.
Totally.
You know, like if I had to pick one or the other, which I think is better, I guess I'd pick Alien. But Aliens also just feels so different, like, than Alien. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a
Alien is
toss up
more
in
of
a way.
horror movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess if I have to pick one, which I think is better, I'd go with the classic Alien. Even, I mean, by now they're both classics, but you know what I mean. I don't know.
I think
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me,
But I mean,
would
that's
go,
one of the reasons.
I was just gonna say I would go Alien. I
Sorry.
think I like better than Aliens, but I feel like Alien is a horror film more than it is, and then Aliens is like an action sci-fi, whereas Alien is a horror sci-fi, right? Oh,
And it's
Yeah.
fun. Go ahead, Yasha, and then I'll kind of.
So, yeah, I mean, what makes those movies so special, in my opinion, is that James Cameron can literally just dive right into everything. Like, there's no delay in character development. You know what you're getting yourself into when you walk into those movies. You know, like with Terminator, one of the reasons why I ranked it so high is that, we have established, a sense of what these characters already are. And he changes it up while we're going into the movie and how amazing it gets as we learn more about them. The same thing I feel with Aliens is that we have an idea of what we're going into and getting ourselves into, but as we proceed, everything changes and gets even deeper and we learn even more. So it's like there's no story building or anything like that per se. It's just diving right in and full speed ahead at 100 miles per hour.
for sure. Oh, he's good at that.
And I was just going to say it's funny because I feel, and I guess we don't probably have enough time to really delve into it, but I kind of almost feel like the first Terminator movie is a sci-fi horror film because of the nature of it to me.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Alien could be a horror film, and then the sequel's actually an action film. And to me, that it's kind of the same for
Same,
the
yeah.
Terminator
No, yeah,
franchise.
you are correct. If you
Yeah.
think about it, yeah, it's a woman basically being chased down to be murdered.
Yeah,
That's a horror film.
exactly.
That
Yeah,
is
exactly.
quintessentially a horror film. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, cool. All right. So without further ado, I will get to my number one. And for me, this movie is a no-brainer. I mean, it just had to be on the list. I mean, everyone knows how much of a fan of this series I am. So obviously, my number one is Spider-Man 2. And of course, Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man is great, but Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2 is really great. And if you really believe that, then you've got another thing coming because you know it's Empire Strikes Back. Come on. Come on. Come on.
I'm watching, like, Dave and I are sitting here, and he looks at me, and he just starts typing, and we're both like, oh, yeah, this is happening. And then Bobby starts with Spider-Man 2, and we're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I wish I could have seen your expression because,
Well,
there's
okay.
just no way that Empire Strikes Back.
There's not.
No.
But I have to type these in as you guys say them, and I'm like typing it in before you say it, and then because obviously no one's seeing this, but I hesitated slightly because I've seen Spider-Man 2 on lists.
I know.
and
yes.
and I've been really kind of confused by seeing that on lists.
And in different franchise versions of them, too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyways,
Go
so
on,
yeah,
Bobby. With
Empire Strikes
Empire.
Back. Bring it home.
Empire Strikes Back. What? There's nothing else. I mean, there's nothing really to say about it. To me, obviously, the New Hope lays the foundation, but Empire Strikes Back takes it to another level. And one of the few times where you see a sort of a cliffhanger ending there, and you're just kind of like left in shock, and you don't get to see that follow up immediately, and you're just left with all those questions. And it's just such a, it hits on every level. It has action, it has romance, it's just all things that you want to see in a movie, and it does it so well. So yeah, it had to be on the list. There's no way it was not going to be on my list.
Obvi.
All right, Yasha.
Gosh, is up.
You look like you're pretty confident now.
Well,
you're
no,
not
man,
looking over at your list for your number one. you rethink it. You got a minute.
You gotta own this.
No, I feel pretty good about it, but I go ahead, bring my list up, David. Let's see you start typing my list. This is what my number one is going to be. So no one knows what my number one is going to be. You're fairly certain what my number one is going to be.
You want me to guess?
I want you to guess. I'll be truthful if it's right.
That's my guess. Not people watching live can't see that, but
that is correct. That is correct. That is number one movie better than the sequel. It's crazy long. It's not a movie that I could probably watch over and over and over. Yeah. But the story of Michael and his father, and how his father came to power Vito, and there's so many just intoxicating moments and brilliant scenes in that movie that really play and develop this character past what we've learned about him in the first one. I really think that this is probably one of the best, if not the best, sequel I've ever seen to a movie when it comes to progression of characters, development of characters, attitude, picturesque, music, everything. I mean, the line alone when Michael approaches Fredo, just it gets me every time. Like, I know it was you, and that line right there. I never thought that it would be so impactful to me when I first saw it, but it's like the more I think about it, the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, this is just brilliant, and it's brilliant, and it's hard to keep a franchise going as well as they did. I'm not going to mention the third one because the third one didn't exist, but the second one is definitely one of those movies where it's like you can stop and it's beautiful, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, The Godfather Part 2. With notable mention of Aliens, I would say, because I was really close to putting Aliens on my list and I just didn't. Ran out of space. So, but that's up there as well.
Nice.
I'm glad you stuck to your guns there, Yasha. That's good.
I think we all knew that where it was going and where I was going.
No, I spoiling my number one. Godfather Part 2 is not my number one, but it is also, I said Terminator 2 felt like one of those classic, it almost has to be on this kind of list. It's not on my list, but I totally get Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
And I think for me, sadly, I've only seen it once. And I've only seen both of those movies once. And they're just not as an important part of my kind of filmography, if you will. Just for me, because I've only seen them the one time, and they're just not as important to me, so they're not on my list. But I totally get why I think most people would put Godfather Part 2 on their list.
I think that's for me, it's kind of ditto. I've only seen The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, each of them one time, and I'm not a big mob movie person, so it's not a genre that I really get into that much. I didn't dislike the films, but I didn't love them. They didn't find a place in my heart. But I know so many people that love the Godfather films, and I know for a fact that if I asked any of them, they'd be like, Godfather 2 is better. Obvious. They wouldn't even, it wouldn't even be a breath between the end of my question and their answer. Godfather 2 is just historically, everybody says is better than the first one. That's just how it is. It's written in stone. Not that the first one's bad, just the second one is just everybody loves it. So
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, you're number one.
My number one, and I think is no surprise, but yeah, for me, it was very obvious. It was probably actually there. It was funny. Yasha last week was like, "Oh, two films immediately," and then I was like, wow, he totally didn't say the two films that immediately pop into my head with this. And for me, it was Terminator 2 and The Empire Strikes Back. Like, those are the two films that if you ask somebody, I think those are usually the ones that pop in very quickly to somebody's head. But for me, yeah, no, Empire Strikes Back, God. It's basically what Bobby was saying. You know, the first one kind of sets the stage, but it kind of ends on a everything's great and we could put a bow on this box. And then you start the second film, and it's like, oh, wow, there was never a bow on that box. Like, everything still is just hell, and there's battles and war, and we're still holding on by the skin of our teeth here, you know? And the movie plays out, and it just kind of twists and turns all the way through, and the ending leaves you on a cliffhanger, multiple cliffhangers, and you're just kind of left going, what? No, the second film out by far, and I'll be honest, I'm sure David already knows. For me, The Empire Strikes Back, I think, is actually my absolute favorite Star Wars film of all of the Star Wars films. So it's easily my number one as far as the sequel being better than the original, and the original being The New Hope. So yeah, for me, yeah, Empire Strikes Back all day, every day.
Okay, well then, yeah, I won't sit around on it for too long. Empire Strikes Back is also my number one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else is there to say about it. It's not a situation like Star Trek in that where Star Trek, it's like, arguably the first film is not very well received. I mean, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, is, I think, a great movie. Yeah. But I think Empire Strikes Back is just much better, and it's the first thing I think of when I think of a sequel that's better than the original. And not only that, but like you said, Michelle, like I think most people, or many Star Wars fans, I think, would say that Empire Strikes Back is their favorite, and it's my favorite of all the films. Though I would say that about Star Trek 2 as well, with that franchise. Anyway, I would say that's probably my favorite Star Trek film. Anyway, Empire Strikes Back, it's incredible. I really have nothing else to add about it that hasn't already been said. It was my quickest entry into this list. It was easily my number one. So yeah, that's my number one film. And while I'm at it, I mean, I'll say really quick, like the other film, or what was a couple other movies that didn't make my list that I really wanted to. One of them being Captain America: Winter Soldier. Which I love, and I still believe is the best film of that trilogy of Captain America movies. I think it's much better than Civil War by far. I really wanted to put it on the list. Superman 2, I really wanted to put on the list. I like Superman, the motion picture, but Superman 2, it was a classic movie that I watched a lot as a kid that I really liked more than the first film. So those were two movies quickly that came to mind that were kind of almost in my top 5 that didn't quite make it, but there's a million other movies I could also mention. And if you guys have any other honorable mentions you wanted to bring up really quick, Bobby, go down the line.
Yeah, I'll go down the line. You mentioned a couple of them, actually, Superman 2 and Captain America Winter Soldier. And then I did also, as a joke, mention Spider-Man 2, but it is actually on my list. That I like more than the original. Yeah. Yeah, I like Doc Ock more than Green Goblin in that whole series. And then X2 for the X-Men movie.
That's what I had in my head too.
Mm-hmm.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that one in my head too.
Follow up. Blade 2, and then it's funny. All my movies were comic book movies, and then the last one, which is probably more controversial to some, is the Batman Returns. I like that more than the original 1989 Batman.
Yeah, that always kills me when we talk about that one.
Yeah, I know.
I will never understand that.
I just cannot, because I just cannot for the life of me ever. At the time, I couldn't, and to this day, I cannot get behind Jack Nicholson as the Joker. It just does not do it for me because I always remember him from comics and cartoons. And when I saw that, I was like, huh? What? What? No, 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 thank you, sir. No, thank you. And I liked, Danny DeVito as Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. So that kind of is what cinches it for me. The villains. I prefer the villains in Batman Returns over the one in the original.
Yeah, no, I remember this first came up because somebody else from another show mentioned it, and I think I asked you, Bobby. I'm like, I'm not crazy, right? Like, is she nuts? And you were like, actually, I agree with her, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Because I mean, on the flip side, I would actually argue not only do I think the first movie's better, I don't like the second movie. I think it's actually really bad.
Yeah,
and
you don't like it.
No, I'm not a fan, and that was kind of height of Tim Burton for me, but no, it didn't. Yeah, we agree to disagree on that one.
Well, it's funny, like like me as a kid, I remember liking the second one when I was younger, when it first came out, because I saw it in the movie theater, and I remember really liking it. And as I got older and I watched it, getting older and having, adult thoughts and seeing movies and knowing how films are and storylines and actors and acting and everything, and I remember the more I saw, the more I was like, it's actually not really that good. And like, it's like how you have that switch as a kid when you used to love Back to the Future 2, but then you watch it as an adult and you go, Back to the Future 2 is a crap show. It's like that was the epiphany I had with the Batman franchise. And then rewatching the first one over and over, I'm like, yeah, this is a way more solid film to me.
But anyway,
so anyways, we're on a tangent. Anyways,
Yasha, any honorable mentions for you?
Well, man, once again, Bobby and I are kind of in agreement. If you look here, it does say Batman Returns.
Oh my god, you guys are killing
on
me.
my list.
That's funny.
Man, it's been fun having you guys on the show.
Yeah.
Like,
as movies that I did kind of enjoy more than the first one.
Now Yash is gonna say Back to the Future too, and I'm gonna be like,
I saw that on a list, and I was just like, it was good, but I don't know if I liked it more than the first one. But there's Batman Returns, Aliens, obviously, as my notable mention. Some of the other movies that Bobby said. Blade 2 definitely better than the first one, like by miles, in my opinion. I really enjoyed Superman 2, the 1982 one or whatever, the one where we first get introduced to Zod. That I remember watching a lot when I was a kid, and I thoroughly enjoyed that one more than I liked the first one as well. Just to name a few, but yeah, I mean that's. I think that's about it. Like I know that you mentioned a bunch of others, but I got distracted and lost in the conversation about Batman and Batman Returns. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. But I did want to show you that I did have that on my list as a movie that I was thinking about because, yeah, like Bobby, I think the villains did it for me in the second one. They were just Danny DeVito as as the Penguin. He crushed it. And Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, she owned the hell out of that role to the point where it's hard for me to even see somebody else taking over that role. Even though in the third Batman movie that Christopher Nolan did, I can't remember, I'm blanking on her name right now, but she did fine. Hathaway. It was Anne Hathaway, thank you. It was fine, but I just didn't see her as a villain per se. And in this movie, Batman Returns, we saw her as a villain. So yeah, like Bobby said, like again, our opinions align very, very closely together almost all the time. Oh, Spider-Man 2. That's another one. Yeah, definitely like that one more than the first one a lot. Because Doc Ock and the fight scenes and everything were brilliant compared to what we were dealing with when it came to Green Goblin. Doc Ock it's like if Spider-Man was the test subject, Doc Ock was like, the first one was the test subject. The second one was like, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and give him funding to actually make this look cool. And that's kind of how that, progressed. And again, X2 as well. That's another one that I really felt that was much better than the first one. And we got a lot got to see a lot more of the characters and the character development, and that was a lot of fun for me. So, yeah, those are some of my honorable mentions.
And I'll, by the way, there was one I didn't mention, I wanted to mention, but I'm talking about, the Wolverine franchise. Logan is easily like way better than the original. That's another honorable mention for me.
Agreed.
But, Michelle.
Agreed.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, no, my notables are Aliens 2 and then X2, X United. And I say that, and I actually like the original, the first X-Men. I thought that one was done really well. I feel like the second one takes it up a notch, and then the third one was just a vast disappointment for me. But no, X2 that was really enjoyable. I remember having a lot of fun watching that one. But then there was this one movie that I kind of kept coming back to on my list, and it's actually not the second in the... I'll say in the franchise of 3, because for me, there's only 3 films in this franchise, although technically I guess there's another film out there. But for me, I think I wouldn't say maybe it's a better film, but I think it's one that found its place in my heart. And I think for me in the franchise of 3, Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade, I think is better slightly than Raiders of the Lost Ark. But barely for me. I think it's just that Crusade has a big place in my heart. I love that film. And I remember as a kid not really liking Temple of Doom as much, but as an adult now, I'm like, Temple of Doom was genius. I'm like, Spielberg was on his game. And now I appreciate Temple of Doom so much that sometimes now I feel like Raiders and Temple of Doom could be interchanged for me in their place of how I rank the 3 films. So, but no, I still really, I don't know what it is. I think there's something about the storyline, the relationship of Indiana Jones and his father, and the way the whole thing plays out in that film, I think is just brilliant, and I love it. So that one actually that's the one it and Dark Knight kind of kept going in and out of 3 basically for me on this list. So, but yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, that's our top 5 list.
And by the way, I don't mean to kick this up again, but Vicky Vale is trash. I don't even see how do you let her into the Batcave? Come on. That's just ridiculous. Come on.
Vicky Vale is 100%. She is trash.
I prefer Catwoman as the femme fatale and the romantic lead over Vicky Vale any day. But
the love interest. Yeah.
I don't think Vicky Vale's trash, but I will say for me, she's not a very strong leading lady character in my opinion. I will agree that I don't think that it frustrates me watching that movie and Vicky Vale's the one that f's up Bruce Wayne for his life, for females, she's the one that does it. I'm like, really? That one? There's so many other cooler chicks out there. I don't think she's that amazing, but I don't think she's trash. I think she's just kind of weak.
I'll say weak.
I don't know what to say.
I don't even know what to say with you people. He's I give up.
No, I don't want to go down the road of talking about Batman Returns for 30 minutes.
We're just going to talk about Batman now.
I'm just going to let this go.
We're just going to talk about Batman now.
Yeah, man. No, I'll say one last thing. I just remember, so Batman came out in 89. I was 11 when that movie came out. So when did Batman Returns come out? 2 or 3 years later? Or was it much faster? I don't know how old I was.
It took a little while, I thought.
Faster. All I can say, my, as a child reaction to it, because I loved Batman as a kid when that movie came out. It was kind of probably an unhealthy fascination. And I remember
How old were you when it came out?
Batman, 11.
Yeah. Oh.
You were at the perfect age for that film when that came out. Spot on perfect age for that film.
So Batman Returns, again, I don't know what year that came out, but
was that 91?
92.
92.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember being so excited that finally, okay, the sequel. And man, I remember walking out of that theater going, what the fuck? Like, I was
At
pissed.
14, you were
I was not happy, man. Like it took like a campiness to another level, this stuff that I just did not like. Yeah. And,
Bobby's just like, no, man.
But anyway, again, we're not gonna go down.
I know Bobby's face. You guys are killing me.
Yeah, let's not go down this path.
Oh, okay.
Fine.
We need to get out of here.
I get it, and I totally can understand why it would rub you wrong. But I take nothing away from that. It was just
and same thing. Like
it
with the Joker, I get what you're saying, even though I like that different interpretation of the Joker. It's just I look at it as something different. I like it. Like,
it is.
But
it is.
I was older than you at that time, and had been reading more Batman stuff at the time, and so what I was expecting from the Joker just wasn't what I got, and that really soured me.
I feel like that Joker.
But I don't think it's a bad movie. So
yeah, I feel like the Nick Jacks. I can't think of his name now.
Jack Nicholson.
Jesus. Jack Nicholson's version. It almost was like a play on the TV version of Joker, not so much the comic version. I think it seemed more like the TV series Joker to me. But anyway,
well, Bob
we
Kane,
need to get out of this
the
hole.
creator of the characters, as we all know. Bob Kane, the creator that we all know, he actually said that Jack Nicholson played the Joker exactly how he envisioned him. So, I mean, that being said, I enjoyed the Joker. I just like the villains a little bit more when it came to the second one, if I were to rank them, I guess. I don't know, but I did enjoy I still enjoy the first one. Like, I love it. It has a special place in my heart. I remember where I sat when I watched the movie, how close I was to the theater because it was the screen because it was completely packed. But yeah, it's so cool. Just thought I'd throw that little fact out there. I read that once in an article, and I thought it was interesting.
So yeah, that's our top 5 list for this week. Next week, Bobby, you've got the list, unless you know what it is now. I know you said it might be a broad one.
Because sometimes he does. Bobby's really good
I remember
about
last
this.
time
Sometimes
you had
he
it
has
ready
them.
to go.
So I'm like, does he have it?
Well, I did have it, and then I started to second guess it a little bit into something else. So I'm kind of just weighing them and seeing which one I want to go with. Because the other one isn't necessarily.
Rumor has it it's top 5 Adam Sandler movies.
Oh man, that wouldn't be.
If we keep going long enough, one of these days we might get there.
Eventually, if we got desperate.
Yeah.
Very desperate.
See how long quarantine lasts for us. Yeah. Well, with that, let's. Oh, go ahead, Bobby. So you get one last thing.
You just said something and it just triggered something in me, and I was just gonna say, at this point, theaters still are holding that they're gonna be opening, and so we might actually get movies, possibly. So we'll see. It's at the end of the month that some of them are supposed to start opening up, and we'll see.
Do you really think we're gonna get the Eternals like we're supposed to get anytime soon, or we're gonna get
that got pushed to February?
Black Widow,
and Black Widow's in November, so I think so. I'm being optimistic, maybe, but I think we'll be okay by then.
I still want to see Wonder Woman.
Don't we all, Yasha? We all.
Sometimes it does click, like when you think about all the movies we should have seen by now.
Oh my
gosh! The Bond film in '84, when Wonder Woman in '84. Yeah,
there's a long list. If you sit and think about it, there's so many films.
Yeah,
I will say.
Next
year's movies are going to be awesome.
I was thinking about it the other day. Hopefully, I was thinking about that the other day, and I really was. I just kind of sat down and I just was like, wow, there's so much that I would have seen and or done already this summer. And I was talking about it with a buddy of mine, and that I work with, and he's just like, he's a baseball guy. He's like, I would have gone to at least half a dozen baseball games already. I would have been doing that. I would have gone on vacation. He's like, nothing. What can we do? We can't do anything. And I'm like, yes, that is correct.
But we
So,
can talk about
since we
movies
can
that
end it
we've
on a
all
high
seen a
note-
million times.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, with that, we will be back next week with probably another top 5 list next week. Bobby, that will be your list. I'll be curious to hear what it is. Before we go, as always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening and watching. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. Also here on YouTube, please make sure to comment down below, and we invite you to like and subscribe by hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below, and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we upload any videos or go live in the future. Also on Instagram and Twitter, Flicker_effect. Check us out there. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening and watching.